What's going on, YouTube? My name is Skill37, and in today's video I'm going to be reviewing for the PlayStation 4 Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain. And wow. So let's cut straight to the point. A lot of people have probably figured out by now that I am a humongous Metal Gear Solid fan. Truth be told, it is my favorite game franchise, and I love it more than Final Fantasy. I grew up with both franchises, but Metal Gear Solid holds a special place in my heart because many of my most memorable moments, my fondest moments growing up, happened when I was gaming. I've always been like this really nerdy kid growing up, and I loved video games. And what I love the most about Metal Gear Solid is that Kojima is just a clever fucking bastard. And every Metal Gear Solid game just makes you think, okay? On top of the amazing gameplay, the high replayability that every previous Metal Gear Solid game, every previous Metal Gear Solid game has a story, characters, a script, a soundtrack that just makes you appreciate gaming as a whole, okay? And when people talk about gaming from back in the day, when people used to talk about gaming will never get to the point where it is today, I get to say that when I was growing up as a boy, I experienced games like Metal Gear Solid, and as the years progressed and how Metal Gear Solid transformed into the monster that it is today. Okay? I've been playing Metal Gear Solid since the original Metal Gear Solid 1, where I discovered the game via a Pizza Hut demo. I was a fat little kid eating pizza at Pizza Hut, and my pizza came with a PlayStation 1 demo. And that's how I discovered Metal Gear Solid, and the rest is history. Metal Gear Solid 1 was amazing. Metal Gear Solid 2 was even more amazing. Metal Gear Solid 3, arguably the best one. Metal Gear Solid 4, my favorite. So, now we're here. It's 2015. I'm 27 years old. I've been playing Metal Gear Solid since I was a boy. What is so awesome about Metal Gear Solid 5 that it's getting all these immaculate scores? Okay? And truth be told, the game is not perfect. But when a game does so much on a scale of Metal Gear Solid 5, it's going to get a perfect score. It's going to be labeled as a game that you have to play. And Metal Gear Solid 5 is a game you have to play. So without getting too much into what makes Metal Gear Solid 5, I want to talk about the key elements like I typically do in my reviews. Because that's always been the success to my YouTube channel. Getting into details that other developers, other reviewers don't. Okay? Let's talk about the main categories like I always do. Let's talk about graphics. The Fox engine, first off, is a phenomenal engine. The game runs in silky smooth 1080p 60 frames per second. That only drops when things such as, and it drops slightly into the 50s, when things such as explosions from helicopters and missiles occur on your screen and Snake dies. So, if you actually are boss as fuck at the game, like yours truly, because I'm a boss-ass motherfucker at these stealth games, then the 60 frames per second will pretty much stay locked. What makes the 60 frames 1080p so fucking phenomenal is the fact that the game is open world. This is the first Metal Gear Solid game that is open world. The landscapes are gorgeous, the weather effects are fucking awesome, and everything around you is in glorious locked 60 frames per second in 1080p. This is an open world game where the controls respond as if it's not an open world game. For those who are unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, open world games like Grand Theft Auto, Assassin's Creed, and so on, typically have some kind of delay in the controls because the games are so big and so much going on that delays are very typical and acceptable in games of this caliber. Metal Gear Solid 5 is a huge game. A wonderfully huge game. The biggest Metal Gear game, period. Metal Gear Solid has always been a relatively point A to point B experience. Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, 3, 4 are all point A to point B games that put the players in decent to large-scale environments, but you're typically just progressing forward, and from these decent to large-scale environments, you're given options on how to progress. And that's always been tradition of Metal Gear Solid. Point A to point B, options. It works. Metal Gear Solid 5 gets rid of that idea and gives players two giant sandboxes that allow you to progress the way you feel most comfortable. Never has a Metal Gear Solid game given you the amount of options that this game does. So, quick recap, game looks fucking awesome. The game controls on a level that you would not expect it to control for a game as large as this. The game is fun to play, it's addicting. Its gameplay is so fucking addicting that the most minuscule, the most tedious of tasks is fun. Because controlling Snake in this experience, this game, is the most rewarding, most fun, and most ridiculously responsive ever for Metal Gear Solid. Basically, what I just told you, this game looks and controls on a level that is near the term immaculate. Sound-wise, Metal Gear Solid has always had a wonderful soundtrack, and this game, this game is once again a game that capitalizes on its sound. Characters sound phenomenal. They take their scripts, the voice actors take their scripts very seriously. This is some Hollywood material shit. The weapons and enemy environments, the weapons, the sound effects of the weather, animals, general ambiance, all on point. I feel Metal Gear Solid 4's orchestra, your music-wise, was a bit better. Metal Gear Solid's music, the soundtrack for Metal Gear Solid 5, outside of sound effects, maybe just, in my opinion, a little weaker than Metal Gear Solid 4. And now we're going to get to 3 of the most important things that make Metal Gear Solid, Metal Gear Solid. You see, outside of the stealth action that we all know and love, Metal Gear Solid has been successful throughout the years, 28 years to be exact, per Hideo Kojima, Lord and Savior. The 3 most successful things about Metal Gear Solid that keep it so memorable: amazing boss fights. Damn, what the fuck is wrong with me? Amazing boss fights, ridiculous stories, and characters you know and love. Hideo Kojima has some kind of gift to make you not only give a fuck about your allies, but love your enemies too. You see, tradition in Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, 3, 4, whereas before and after you fought a boss, you learned something about these enemies, how they obtain their powers, how they obtain, why they are in the position they are in, why they are there at that time and place. Why is this vampire helping these motherfuckers out? Why can this motherfucker read minds? Why this motherfucker got a giant chain gun? Why are you in a wolf suit? And why are you made of beads? The enemies in Metal Gear Solid have always been questionable to the point where, how the fuck did you come up with this guy? But you loved them. You loved every single boss fight in Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, 3, 4. You loved the fact that there was a ridiculous amount of information to learn about said enemies and allies. And then the stories for Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, 3, 4 have always been really, really touchy subjects, shit other games wouldn't dare to touch. And that tradition continues in Metal Gear Solid 5, but sadly not on the same level as previous Metal Gear Solid games. The story for Metal Gear Solid 5 touches subjects that I really didn't think I would see in a video game, such as child soldiers. You can actually shoot children in this fucking game. That shit caught me off guard. When I'm on my first mission, I see this little black-ass motherfucker with a gun, and I can actually shoot him. Granted, the mission ends if you kill the fucking kid. The fact that I can get to that point, I'm sitting here with the controller like, nigga, holy shit. Oh my god, this is some pretty adult shit right here. That's a dark tone right there. There's a specific mission in Metal Gear Solid 5 that will make you cringe. Okay, you unlock this mission in Chapter 2, and it's such a ridiculous fucking mission. And you got voices in your head telling you what you're doing is wrong, and you know what you're doing is wrong, but you gotta progress somehow. And this mission makes you go, holy shit, Kojima, you are a fucking asshole for making me do this fucking mission. It's awesome. Okay? That's the kind of shit you play Metal Gear Solid games for. Now, here's the issue of having Metal Gear Solid 5. A lot of people need, it has to be pointed out that a lot of reviewers did fail to point out. While Metal Gear Solid 5's story is very dark and touched on subjects you don't see in other games, Metal Gear Solid 5's story is relatively weaker than Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, 3, 4. You see, a lot of people went into Metal Gear Solid 5 hoping to get some kind of closure, so a better understanding as to who Big Boss truly is, why he turned into the fucking menace he is in Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2. And remember, Metal Gear Solid in general is technically based around Big Boss. So we went into Metal Gear Solid 5 hoping to experience this. And sadly, you don't get that. You get a dark story that touches upon some crazy shit. You do build and lead your private military army that you expected to do if you played Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops 1 and 2 and Peace Walker. You knew what to expect, but our expectations were a little high, and sadly, especially my expectations, in a sense, were not met story-wise. The story is not bad in any shape, way, or form, but it's not in the same caliber and it's not of the same caliber and level that we're used to as fans of a franchise that we've been playing since we were kids. And I know lots of people on Facebook and Twitter, and I've read on a couple websites that will agree with me. While the gameplay, while the story is good and it has quite a few memorable scenes, it just lacks compared to previous entries in the franchise. Character-wise, a couple cool characters introduced to the franchise, but a lot of returning characters. Metal Gear Solid 5 is technically a continuation, okay, where things kind of left off with Peace Walker. And a lot of characters that are in the game, when they're introduced, in a sense, notice I'm doing this with my fingers, they're more or less just taking place from where the previous game left off. So if this is your first Metal Gear Solid game, you're not going to know who the fuck Revolver Ocelot is. You're not going to know who Kaz is. You're not going to know who Huey is. But they're in the game. Okay? And they look phenomenal. They sound phenomenal. But unlike previous games, there seems to be this lack of detail with making you give a fuck about these characters. There's not really much codec-wise and cassette tape-wise to learn about these characters if you're new to the franchise. You're going to have to do a little history or play previous entries in the series. And what new characters are introduced, you don't learn too much about them. Sure, you got you learn about the Man on Fire, the floating kill with the fucking, with the, I just shot a theater fucking orange goddamn haircut, which is like a menace, by the way. You know, that little kid, Eli, who's obviously fucking Liquid Snake, that is so fucking, the second I saw that kid, I was like this, oh look, it's Liquid Snake. As a child, interesting. But there was not as strong presentation for these characters. Sure, you learned about these characters, but not like you would have learned about them in previous games, where there was an exaggerated amount to learn about every character, enemy, ally you met. Maybe that was just something that was intentional design. Maybe Kojima's core mindset was introduce a memorable gaming experience rather than a visual experience. A lot of fans like myself would have actually preferred a little bit of both. I appreciate the amazing depth and the amount of content the game provides. This game has more game than pretty much all the Metal Gears combined. It's a big fucking game with a lot to do, a lot to unlock, to the point where I can't even talk about it in this review. Just know that's a lot of fucking game. But sadly, the game lacks in the story and make you give a fuck about the characters department. And my last complaint, which is my biggest complaint, and my biggest why, is to why was there virtually no bosses in this game. That caught me off guard. When I beat the game and got the true ending and went back and played all the harder versions of missions and all the side ops, I said to myself, there's no fucking boss battles in this game? Excuse me? You got the sniper duel with Quad, but it's not hard. You got the final battle with Philanthropist, aka Metal Gear. It's not hard. Okay? You got a couple instances where you take on the skulls in pairs of 4. First off, I believe 2 or 3 of those battles you can avoid entirely for the S rank, and you're encouraged to avoid them for the S rank. And then one time, you're forced to fight the skulls, but guess what? Through the game's amazing buddy system, if you recruit Quiet, she can demolish everything for you. She holds your hand. See, this game introduced a buddy system where you have a fucking horse. A fucking horse. A fucking horse. Okay? That gets you from point A to point B in the open world. A fucking horse. Jesus Christ. There's a fucking horse in this game. The second I got the horse, I said, holy shit. Yes, there's a fucking horse. And yes, the horse controls 1,000,000.5 better than the fucking roach in The Witcher 3. Take that, fuckers. You have a robot companion, which you'll never use. He's absolutely fucking useless. You have a dog, or a wolf, that can spot enemies for you across a fucking mountain, which totally breaks the game. But who cares, Metal Gear Solid? It makes sense somehow because Hideo Kojima wrote it. And then you have Quiet. After you fight your first boss battle with Quiet, you're given a chance to recruit her. Okay, you spare her or you kill her. You kill her, then you're a fucking idiot. If you let her live, you'll get lots of nice little juicy side story with her. And plus, she has a big ass and nice big titties, and she shoots things. If you take her on your mission to start the game, between her and the dog, they break the fucking game. The dog makes fighting enemies way too easily, and once you build up a bond with Quiet, you gain access to better commands for her and better weaponry. To the point where when you do these battles with the skulls in pairs of 4, she can demolish them by herself. Your AI partner can hold your hand through these little, these little boss battles. But technically speaking, this game only has 2 boss battles, and that is with Quiet and Philanthropist. That is a humongous disappointment. Okay, a humongous disappointment. I did not expect that. I did not expect Kojima to go that route. Okay, yes, there's a lot of game. Yes, there's a lot of replay value. Yes, you can approach every single mission. Every single... You can approach every single fucking mission in this game your way. There is not a single fucking mission that tells you you have to play it this way. It gives you ideas and hints, and it kind of says you should do it this way, but you can accomplish the entire game your way. You want to run and gun? Be my guest. You can call in fucking Call of Duty goddamn airstrikes. Yes, you can call in Call of Duty airstrikes. Like you call in an airstrike, and it says kill streak confirmed and shit, and the fucking airstrike comes in. I swear to Christ, I'm telling you the absolute fucking truth right now. You play Call of Duty in Metal Gear Solid 5, it's fucking hilarious. You approach this game the way you want. The amount of freedom in this game is phenomenal. It's a wonderful game with many distractions. The open world is excellent. Okay, gone is the point A to point B approach to the game. In return for the big final farewell from Hideo Kojima, he gives you a giant sandbox to play with. This is the most responsive, most intense, most content-packed Metal Gear Solid experience ever conceived. It is the longest Metal Gear Solid game ever conceived. It is the darkest, most serious Metal Gear Solid game ever conceived. You can shoot little black kids in this fucking game. Holy shit, game of the year. Metal Gear Solid 5 destroys all previous entries gameplay-wise. But sadly, the lack of bosses, the weaker than previous entry story-wise and character development just stopped it from receiving a perfect score from me. You see, to me as a fan, a hardcore fan of the franchise, a Metal Gear Solid game is not a Metal Gear Solid game without ridiculous, memorable boss fights, over-the-top story, and ridiculous appreciation to detail with the backstory of characters. And those 3 important things were Metal Gear Solid 5's weakest points. The game's still going to get a ridiculously high score from me, but it's not going to get the perfect score that everyone else seems to be stamping on this fucking game. You got your side distractions such as building up Mother Base, which is ultimately a little side RPG as a time killer. You build up your little army, which seems to have no real effect on the gameplay at all. You get to gather resources, send your people on missions, and ultimately all it does is you're building up a base that serves zeros for no purpose. It's just more of a little getaway when you're bored. And, oh my god, your base is getting big and shit. And you build up your weaponry, you get your different outfits and shit. But truth be told, if you know what the fuck you're doing, you can actually progress through the entire game with a trank gun, a rifle, a rocket launcher for the final boss, and a sniper rifle to take on Quiet. You don't really need much. The game gives you options. The game gives you the sandbox. But if you're a true veteran of the franchise, you could approach this game the same way you approached it in Metal Gear Solid 2, 3, and 4, and that is with the most bare minimum. It is possible, but you still have the options to progress the way you, the player, want to progress. It's phenomenal. I highly recommend this game. This game isn't essential. You have to play this game. My final score for Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain for PlayStation 4, the masterpiece that just seems to just fucking miss the perfect score from yours truly, gets a 9.5 out of 10. Thank you for watching my review. I appreciate you sitting through this long-ass review, and thank you for waiting so long for me to get the review out in the first place. Catch you guys next video. Deuces, and yes, Metal Gear Solid Online version 3, Metal Gear Solid Online 3 is coming out soon. I am prepared to fucking geek out when this shit comes out, because if you remember me, when I was going through my little transition into becoming, you know, a law enforcement officer, I would rush home. In my 4 months in the academy, I would rush home to play Metal Gear Online. It was my mental recreation. I went through hell in the academy. I would come home and play Metal Gear Online because it would make me feel like a fucking person again, and then I'll go back to the fucking academy and suffer. It was gay. But thank you, Hideo Kojima. Thank you for providing me with the most glorious series to grace my living room growing up. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this growing family, this fan base. You, Hideo Kojima, will go down in history as possibly the greatest video game director ever. Okay? There is no director that's done what you've done. You're a sick motherfucker. There's something actually fucking wrong with you. You're a goddamn genius. Thank you.